Hey guys, all right, let's take a look at Ethereum and Litecoin. Is there, creating some possible opportunities here? So this is Ethereum against the Tether on Poloniex. So you can see here this has been quite technical. We've let me just show you where I'm pulling those from. So I've got the all the way from our low to our high. We've got the 50% here in red, and then from our swing low here, where we were looking for potentially some sort of an impulse to start, we've gone right to the 786. So thus the box. We went right into the box, and then we're getting that first reaction. So, of course, on the way up, we got to consider those retracements. So from our swing high here to what is now this low, you can see we've come right to the 50 here, a few ticks shy of it. So there's a bit of a fib fight here. So it's a question of, do we have a 1-2 starting, or do we just have something along the lines of an A, B before we go down again? So it really, it's very hard to call that. I mean, if you're looking for a trade, this is certainly a reasonable trade to be making. You'd have to be a buyer here because we've got these huge upside targets here. So this is a potential entry with a very tight stop. So I don't mind taking that kind of a trade. That's reasonable because the potential damage here is so small. It certainly has the makings of it because of this technical pivot here. In fact, if we take it down to the hourly, you'll recall from yesterday, here it is, this is the hourly on Kraken, only because that's where I'm trading it. But you can see here I had talked about the potential of this box holding and providing us that first impulse and then the trade lower. Well, it just turned out to be this. So here's exactly what, for the more conservative trader, here was the opportunity. So if you took this, well, you've got a little gain, but now we've given some back. Are we potentially is this the opportunity to add? So if you caught this, good for you, right? So you still no reason to make any changes to that because we have these targets up here that are really substantial. So we've got, if we're going to get a 1 and this is a 2, 3 targets are way up here. Here's our negative 23. So that's a 16 to 1. Absolutely nothing wrong with that. But we can't rule out the possibility that we've just put in some sort of an impulse here. We've gone to the first place that you'd expect to find resistance, which is the 50, and now we're going to start heading lower. So at the very least, if you took this trade from yesterday, you want to have your stop. I would move it to break even. Why take any risk if you don't need it? If it's going to come back down here and go that deep, then likely it's going to challenge the pivot. No reason to take any additional risk. So if you're in, good. If you're bullish here, you definitely have an opportunity to add. Any help from the oscillators? It's not really, but pretty much what you'd expect in for a 2. We don't want this going down too deep because what we're hoping here. Let me open it up. We have potential ABC, but again, you have the possibility. So you have 2. This is where it's tricky because you have the possibility for this to be an A, B, and a C coming down lower. Let me take our little arrows off just to clear up the chart. That you've got a little 3-wave subdivision here for an A wave. You've come to the this would be to the 50 on the way back. So if you look here, well, we're just barely through the 50, right to the Vegas wave. So you've got the potential for this to be coming back down to challenge that. If you're not in, I'd be inclined to wait for a little more information. So if that's an A, there's your B. So here's the I'm going to take this off. So here's the next little pocket where you'd be looking for new entry. Here's your right there. So if you're long from this, your stop's at break even. It's going to come back down here and go to this negative 23, which is reasonable. It maintains the count because if we've got a 1-2, we know we could easily go down to the 786 before we start heading higher. So you've got a bit of a fib fight here. We don't have any clarity or any certainty as to where we are in this sequence, other than this is a good sign. And you can actually see here some subdivision to imply that we've got a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So good sign that that's an impulsive 1. Now the question is, how deep do we go into the correction? So you've got a little ABC for this A. This, again, it's, if you want clarity, if you want to be more conservative, you wait for this kind of action. So then you can say, okay, my 2's in, and now I've got again, this would be a 1, 2, 1, 2 starting in the 3. So it just becomes a question of your risk tolerance, how aggressive you want to be in the market, what your long-term bias is perhaps for Ethereum. I'd be inclined to wait for a little more clarity before just jumping into the market here, because I think you've got a real possibility for this to come down. Put in our 2 here. Let's draw that up, going back from our low here to our high. So the A wave comes right to the 618, then the B wave goes the other way, just right to the 50. So likely we stay technical, and there's likely one more little push down here. So if you want to tighten that up a little bit, so you've got a range here from 285 to 280. So that's a $5 range for the next entry to be long. That might be worth waiting for, because look at the risk tolerance there. So now your stop would be on the other side of the swing low here. So if you get an opportunity to be a buyer with a fresh long, I do like that. If you're long from yesterday and you're looking at this with a maybe a stop here at your entry or a few ticks below it, so your risk is very minimal. This is potentially an opportunity to add into us for a second, looking for that upside because of those huge targets upside. So very reasonable trading down here with very low risk, exactly what I like. A little more subdivision here would be nice, but as it sits here, it's just trader's preference, right? How aggressive do you want to be? All right, let's take a quick look at Litecoin, because it's very similar in Litecoin. This has gotten technical again. We have this kind of conundrum here where we had a potential 1, 2. Is this now a 3? This doesn't really play as a 4, so you really have to start to count all over again. So I'm pulling now from this low, because this is not our 1 wave. We have some sort of truncated wave action here. We get an impulsive structure here. That's our clue. We go very deep here. Then we get another nice impulsive structure here, which we thought was our 1 wave, but now we've gone mighty deep to consider that a 1. But look how we've gone right to the box here. Let me just show you how, that's why you draw these boxes, because those are targets both for entry and for exit. So here's from our swing low here. Let me dial it in. From our swing low to our high, here's the 786. Right? And then here from our swing, from this high to low labeled as an A wave, back to the B, here was the negative 23 target for that. So we get this confluence here. So we draw the box. We've got the median line right there. Now we spiked through on a hard wick, but we look at the reaction. And to and through the outside edge. So that's a very bullish sign. So potentially we have the exact same scenario here. We have this as a 1, 2. Well, shit, I got to change that. So let's get our impulsive tool here. So we have potentially 1, 2 going in before we start going up again. So let me put the wave on that just to clarify. So, again, a very, very nice risk reward. So you can be a buyer right here. I mean, really, you'd want to have your target here off of this, because so we're pulling from swing low to high down to the 786. There's our first target. I'd be very tight with the stop. No reason to take anything below that swing. So that's 7.6 to 1, assuming we're going just to this target. Now, if we consider the targets off of this 1 and this as a 2, well, then our upside is substantially higher. We'd be up pushing those old highs. So, but we'd likely be getting there impulsively. So, it's not going to go straight. So you're likely, if this is going to play, if this is our roadmap, we're likely looking at a 3. Then we'll get our 4. Then we start up for that 5 to complete the 3. You see that, right? It's waves within waves. So very reasonable place to be entering Litecoin there. Minimal downside, good upside targets, a chance to get into the third of the third. lots of opportunity there and reasonable downside. Just what I look for. So those are two to put on your radar. Okay, guys, I'll wrap it there.